In this lesson, it's going to be about leadership. So I want to get right into the topic. There's a lot I can talk about leadership and how people lead, but I want to focus it in today's lesson plan for you to give you some tips and tools that you can apply. As far as actions, I look at leadership in two different perspectives. One, I mentioned the leadership is the area of study, and then it's the actions that people do. But I would like for you to look at your philosophies, if you will, and here's a question I have for you. Are you a motivator? Do you motivate people, or do you inspire people? This is an important question to answer, because the answer to this may be something that you want to think about and decide whether it's accurate or not, whether it needs to be changed or not, or whether later we'll find out whether you're congruent with your actions. I tend to believe that I cannot motivate other people. And I also believe that nobody's ever motivated me. I believe that what work I do is to inspire. I try to inspire others by creating a culture or an environment where perhaps there's trust and respect inherent, where people know that they're valued and appreciated for the work that they do. I do this in a manner that aligns with my actions to support this. And so I don't try to motivate each individual employee because I don't believe I can, and so therefore I don't try. I believe if I tried to motivate people, I would be far more focused on each individual person and trying to find out what makes each one be who they are. And that, I believe, is a wrong approach, and I don't think it works well. In the long run, the best leaders I have seen are those who inspire others to achieve perhaps what they couldn't achieve on their own otherwise. I had many people who were great leaders in my life, and they all looked at me in a sense where they gave me opportunities, and it was up to me to decide whether I was self-motivated or not to grab onto those opportunities and do well with them. I believe motivation is something that's inherent in people, and we either have it or we don't. Or if it's not there, then if somebody can inspire us, then perhaps that motivation changes. With the right people who set a great example, who have a strong vision, it's easy to be inspired. It's easy to want to help them. So as you look and go through this program, start to look at, are you a motivator or do you inspire people? And it's okay if you motivate people. I'm not saying you can't. I just know that I don't, and I don't believe I can. And as much as I'd like to say about right or wrong, there really is no right or wrong here. It's what one believes and what one feels. And if you believe that you motivate others, that's great. Then as we go through this, the question will be, are you congruent in your actions or are you incongruent? And I believe for me, personally, if I was to try to motivate people, I would be incongruent in my actions, and therefore I would be far less successful than I would be otherwise. And I'll talk more about this in a minute. Look at different power bases. Leaders, they all have different power bases. There's several different types of power bases, and I'm not going to share all of them, but there's different power bases that are common and seen pretty much every day. Some people have a certain power based on their financial situation. Some people have power based on their knowledge situation. Some people have what's known as positional power based on a place in an organization, a hierarchy, somewhere like perhaps a CEO or president of a company who has positional power over others below him or herself. There's that expert power of that person who's a subject matter expert in their field. And then there's that person who has financial power, who is able to have people and make people do things based on perhaps fear or just by paying them to do things. The most important thing I believe as a leader is to understand the power bases we come from. I believe to a certain degree I have expertise in leadership as well as communications, and so therefore a lot of times people call me to help them out, or I write books about these topics, and for me I believe I have a certain level of subject matter expertise. When I was working in an organization, when I was a dean at the University of Phoenix or an officer in the United States Navy or a chief operations officer for a company, there I had positional power, and that gave me the authority to be able to tell and instruct and be able to tell other people how to do their work. The congruent actions come from the combination of knowing how you help other people, on whether you are motivating them or on whether you're inspiring them. And the different power bases that come from that are those which then allow one to be congruent in their actions. We always hear the phrase of walk the talk. Do they walk the talk? Walk the talk means, do the senior leaders actually do the things that they talk about? Are they being congruent in their actions? If they're incongruent, they may be saying one thing in one group but doing something completely different. Being congruent as a leader is critical. And we know leaders who have done extremely well, and we want to follow them. And that's because they set a great example. Maybe it was one of your grandparents, or maybe it was your parent or a sibling or coach. And they just set a great example. And they either inspired you or they came from their power base to share their knowledge with you, to help guide you. They were congruent in their actions if they were able to do that. Where you know some people, they would talk about certain things like they want to help you, but they never show up to help you. That means they're being incongruent with their actions. If I can say anything at this point in this lesson, is to circle the words congruent actions on your notepad that you're using to take notes in this program, because the more you can be congruent, the more authentic you will be. The more people will respect you and want to follow you in your goals. There's 3 things I learned through all of my travels and all of my experiences, consulting, training, my own work that I've done, my research, and I found that these 3 things I'm going to share right now are critical if you want to be a better leader. And the first one is that you have to learn how to self-reflect. Self-reflect means literally just thinking back, or if you're with other people, discussing what happened in a situation. Perhaps you had a big marketing campaign and now it's over. And you want to look back and say, how did that go? You want to reflect on it and what went well, what didn't go so well. Self-reflection is the ability to look backwards on something that occurred and run it through your mind again, or get people talking about it, how to go from the beginning to the end. And it's just really examining what took place, defining everything that happened or didn't happen as designed by the plan. Once you know that, then you can go to the next step, which is assessing. Once you self-reflect, you can assess to what extent or to what degree did you achieve your goals. If it was that marketing strategy, if it was designed to produce a certain measurable outcome, the question is, did it? If it did, why did it do that? If it exceeded, why? If it didn't meet the objectives, why not? And if it didn't, by how much did it fail? And then look at reasons why it didn't actually achieve its goals. This is why it's important to actually have goals, because once you have goals, you can actually go into them and start to measure the results of those goals and whether they were achieved or not. Self-reflection, self-assessment are things that we do on a regular, irregular basis, but the most successful people do it continually. And they've done it so much that it's almost second nature to them. And in some cases, the subconscious mind is doing it because they practice it over and over and over. The next step after self-reflecting and self-assessing is then to self-correct. The idea of continuous process improvement, of reflecting upon what happened, assessing it, and then making it better the next time. If in that marketing strategy everything worked as planned, that's great. Then maybe they just want to repeat that same process again. If it didn't achieve its goals, they may want to look at how can they improve it next time by doing different steps or adding new steps to it. And if they were able to exceed their goals, then that's great. Then they want to know why. Perhaps they set the goal too low. And so in the future, in the self-correcting part is to then put a new plan into place and move the goal even higher. The United States Army does what they call after-action reviews. And they do this after every exercise, after every campaign that they're in, and even after every battle that they fight. And their after-action review is these 3 steps. It encompasses the reflection, the assessment, and correction. And they do it extremely well. If you look into Wikipedia and look for after-action review, you'll find a lot of information about what the U.S. Army does. I was in the United States Navy, and I gained a great appreciation for watching the Army do this. If you talk with anybody who served in the Army, more than likely they can tell you about that program. They are world class. Question is, who in your life has set a great example for you who self-reflect, self-assess, and self-correct? I encourage you to start going through your daily routine for a while and look back at the day, at the end of the night, perhaps before you're getting ready to go to bed. Just reflect back on your day. Was it a good day? Was it a bad day? Was it a so-so-so day? How did your day go? And then assess it and say, okay, well, things didn't go as I had hoped. I know I need to do a couple extra tasks I didn't get done. I didn't spend enough time helping the kids with their homework. You didn't go to church as you had planned. And then the idea is to go that self-correction. Is there something you can do different tomorrow to make tomorrow even better than today was? The idea of doing this on a regular basis means that it becomes a habit. And as it becomes a habit, then it becomes a routine. As it becomes a routine, it gets easier and easier and easier. And as I indicated, in many cases, people start to do it, almost subconsciously, in the sense that they're constantly looking for doing things better in the future. An area which I believe people need to have a better understanding about is the knowledge base that every decision counts. Every decision that one makes counts. And there's a saying that goes that success is defined at the point of the decision, when that decision's made. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is, let's look about how your health is. The decision about everything that you eat or drink decides your health later. So every decision counts. If you're not eating a healthy meal, you're eating an unhealthy meal. And incremental gains comes into play here. You're either going to eat healthy meals on a regular basis over time and be healthier 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, or you're not, because you've eaten bad meals on a regular basis that were fat or greasy or high in calorie than you should have had. And over time, it's going to collectively take you the other way. And that's kind of like incremental losses that add up to be huge losses, where perhaps years down the line, one is not so healthy. Perhaps they're diabetic, or they have problems with their health later in life that they wouldn't have otherwise. We can see the actions that we do every day when we decide to influence those around us, whether it be our employees where we work, our people in society that we meet, or our family members. That every decision counts. Everything that we say is going to make a difference one way or the other. And a lot of times people come up to me when I'm working with them, particularly in a coaching program, and I have them write down every decision they make for a number of days. And they get tired of doing that. They don't want to do that. But little by little, by doing that, they start to see where they're making poor decisions and where they're making good decisions. Then they can do that self-reflecting, self-assessing, and self-correcting. And it happens very quickly. Before you know it, people are constantly making better decisions because it's inherent in them that they're looking at their decisions. It's easy just to grab something to eat on the run and not worry about your health 5 or 10 years from now. Those of us who maintain a diet and maintain a certain level of health have come to the point and realize that when we make a decision, it's to go into McDonald's, if I have to eat at McDonald's, and find a salad with the chicken breast on top of it, not the cheeseburger, which I really like, but have that salad more often than I don't have that salad. Every decision counts. Think about all the bad decisions you've made in your life. Imagine if you would have stopped and thought about them a little bit more and made better decisions. We all make mistakes, there's no doubt about it. We always will continue to as life goes on. Point is, can you minimize those bad decisions from this point forward? And the answer is astoundingly yes, if you're willing to do the work. Great leaders manage their time. You have to be able to manage your time well. Actions of leaders is being able to realize that there's so many hours in a day and how they get the most out of those days. Managing time is about keeping a schedule. It's about prioritizing one's work. Managing time and prioritizing come together and work hand in hand to make every decision count. These 3 areas that I'm talking about are really all one, but if we look at them differently, it's easier to understand better how we can be more successful sooner. When I prioritize my time, I do it in such a way that every week I write down a list of 20 things I have to get done the next week. 20 things I have to get done next week. So as part of this program, if you're not following along with the notepad, now's a great time to get a notepad out and write down 20 numbers, 1 through 20. And then later, fill them in with 20 things you have to do in the next 7 days. Now you may say, write down a list of 20 things you have to do in the next week. Literally, write down all 20 of them. Don't stop at number 10 or 12 or 13. Those will come pretty easy to you at that point. Literally go to 20. Write down 20 things you have to do in the next week. Then create 3 columns, a column A, B, and C. Take those 20 items and distinguish each one of them by one of those columns, the A column being its priority. They have to get done. These items out of the 20 just have to get done, otherwise something terrible is going to happen. B are the less important, but still important that they should get done within the week. And the things that fall into the C column are those which are like routine. And if they don't get done, you'll be okay. But they still are things that need to get done. I'll give an example of a couple that I use on a regular basis or that you might consider. And one of them might be just your automobile. Most people like to get their oil changed on regular increments. I like to get my oil changed every 3,000 miles. So I know I need to get the oil changed in my car. And so that would go on my list of 20 items that I want to do next week, but it's in the C column. It's in the C column because if I don't get it done next week, my car is still going to be okay. It's just that it's time. It'll be better off if I do change it sooner than later. Now, if all of a sudden I go out to start my car later and the red light pops on about the oil, well, then it's going to move from the C list to the A list because I know I've got to get it fixed right away because something else is wrong. The environment changed, and so therefore my priorities have to change, and that's expected. It will happen from time to time. If I have to put out a proposal for a client that's due within 3 days, that's going to be on my A list because I have to get it done, because if I don't get it done, I won't get an opportunity to be considered for the proposal and will lose work. What are the 20 things you have to do? Put them into this prioritized list. Do this every week. And that'll help you manage your time, because then you'll start focused on the most important things each week and you'll get things done. I do what I call time chunking, and that's how I manage my time. And I'm going to go into this in detail in the future lesson plan about time management. But time management is important, and what I do by time chunking is I start to look at things in hour increments. In hour increments, I look at saying, okay, what can I get done in an hour? I try to manage my emails in an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. I'll do my social media work for an hour a day. I will do some marketing strategies where I'll turn off everything else, all my phones, and I'll turn off the instant messenger, and I'll just focus for 1 hour, because I know if I just focus for 1 hour, I will be totally focused and I'll get more work done. That's how I make my decisions. I went through my whole doctorate degree program 1 hour a day, where 1 hour a day I sat down and studied, or I typed my papers. I worked 1 hour a day, and that 1 hour I got so much done. Now certainly there were times where I spent more than 1 hour, but I had put myself a time in my agenda 1 hour a day to work on my degree. When I write books, it's about 1 hour a day. Even this program, it's about 1 hour increments, because that's about all I can do at one time and be totally effective. After that, my efficiency and effectiveness drop off. And I think this is true with most leaders. Today, there's so many things happening simultaneously that we have to know and be able to do that sometimes if we don't manage our time well, it's hard to make better decisions. So these 3 areas go hand in hand. I am a firm believer that a great leader who does great actions builds teams. It doesn't necessarily mean a team like a sports team or a team in the workplace. This could be leading the team in your home. It could be building a great team in society, perhaps at a group that you belong to or a church you go to. it's definitely in the workplace as well. But the idea is that leaders build teams. They bring people together, or they're able to take people in a group and help them to achieve more because they are there to help lead and guide, coach, and mentor them. A team builder is somebody who sees capabilities in others and helps them to bring those capabilities out, which may not happen without that leader being there. If you want to be a great team builder, you have to be a great communicator. And we're going to talk about communications in the next lesson plan, because the next lesson plan is all about communications. You have to be a great communicator, at least a good communicator, to be a good leader. Team building is important, and there's skill sets that can be learned. Even if you don't know how to build a team, by being on a team, you can start to watch others, other coaches, and how they do it, and build a stronger team around you. Great leaders, good leaders, people who just seem to get a lot done are doing so because they're productive, not busy. There's a lot of people who are just busy all the time, right? Ask people, how you doing? Oh, I'm busy. I'm getting all sorts of stuff done. And I ask, but are you being productive? Being productive is by creating that list of 20 items and classifying it A, B, and C and working on your priorities. Being productive is moving things off that list, or moving things from the B column to the A column because the A column is taken care of. Or it's about managing a crisis when it comes up in such a manner that you're working with other people to be able to reduce the stress but able to get things done. Look at the use of your time. If you are running out of time at the end of the day and you're just not getting things done, are you living in busy land, or are you living in productivity land? For organizations to be productive, they need to have people and process which are efficient and effective. When I go into organizations and I work with people to help them develop their process, it's to improve those processes or to help them better understand how to solve problems so that's not costly in the long run. Another action of leaders who are successful is that they develop talent in others. It's like that high school coach who saw something in somebody else and said, you know what, I'm going to work with that student and I'm going to help them develop them skills. We're going to put them through some drills and help bring out that skill to a point where it wouldn't have come otherwise. I'm a firm believer that I became a better leader or supervisor because those above me saw something in me and gave me a chance. And they tutored me and they mentored me and they were there to answer questions for me. But they saw something in me at a certain point which I did not see within myself. Have you ever done that, where you actually helped somebody develop a talent or a skill that they at the time didn't believe they had? Or maybe it was a grandparent or your parent that did that for you. Good leaders work with other people. And when you're developing other people, you're building teams and you're being more productive. These areas do go hand in hand as well, because the three things really are characteristics of great leaders. Another thing that leaders do is realize that they have to train for today, that because there's so much going on, they have to constantly be training. They have to train to make sure that their skills are at the highest level. It's not enough to have gone to college and taken some workshops 3 or 4 years ago and not do anything more since then. Electronic systems are changing on a regular basis. We see this happening with our computers, our laptops, our iPhones, our Blackberries, our iPads. Everything is changing so quickly that we have to train and be effective today and tomorrow. If we don't constantly train and look at what areas we need to improve upon, it's hard to stay relevant. It's hard to stay top of your game if you're not training on a regular basis. This goes really hand in hand. Again, I say hand in hand because a lot of these things are connected. They're not distinguished by their own self-entities, but the interconnections of all these I'm talking about go together. And when you're doing that self-reflecting, self-assessing, part of the self-correcting may be that you have to do more training. And training is much like on-the-job training. It's things that are needed right now, today, to be able to help you be more successful now. Whereas educating for tomorrow means that you're looking at continuing your education. You're a lifelong learner, that you may be going for a master's program in business, or you're taking different workshops. You're continually putting yourself in places where you can grow your skills as a person, as a professional. Both of them are important. We need to develop our personal life, our personal points of view, our health, and we also need to be able to develop our education so that we're ready for tomorrow. Because tomorrow's coming, and I have a saying which says, chance favors the prepared. If tomorrow's coming, why would we not want to be prepared for it as much as we can? And this may be from reading. I like to read 10 pages of a good book every day. In the first section, I talked about reading. I'll talk about reading again here as leaders are readers. Imagine reading 10 pages of a good book every day. A good book about self-development, about personal development, about organizational development, how to become a better leader, how to become a better manager. If you only read 10 pages of a good book every day, now let's insert in there incremental gains. 10 pages of a good book every day for a year collectively adds up to be roughly about 13 to 18 good books a year. 13 to 18 good books a year will change your philosophies at the fundamental level. And therefore, it'll change your attitudes and you'll have different actions because you'll be applying some of the things that you read. The idea of incremental gains here with leaders or readers is critical. To say that if you want to continue to develop and be that lifelong learner, you need to be doing something on a regular basis, not just going to class and get one degree and say that's enough. Find other opportunities to go to school, go to workshops, go to a weekend retreat somewhere. Whatever it is that you need to get better at, that's coming out of your reflecting and your self-correcting decisions will help you better decide where you need to go. If you're at that point where you're running out of day at the end of the full event of 24 hours and you still got work to do, then you may realize now that you need to do some different types of training and plan for different types of education to make you more efficient and effective now, but as well as in the future. Communicator is somebody who is able to set a great example, somebody who understands about creating trust and respect, somebody who is able to persevere and be able to share their insights with other people. I do believe that education is a lot like life. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it.